Hydra is a race of intelligent marine reptiles that live in shallow waters throughout the world's oceans. The Hydra has an elongated tolo with a thick tail and 2 small 4-toed limbs. And also 3 long snake-like heads. There are angular appendages on the necks of all 3 heads of the creature and on its sides on the tail, and a continuous undulating ridge stretches across the back. The Hydra has a bright color, including light green, marsh and yellow colors. The color of the roses varies and can be brown, yellow or green. Females and males have no external differences. The body length of an adult Hydra is 25 meters and its weight is up to 15 tons. However, there are also larger individuals. The largest recorded Hydra was a male named Juro Dilo Long, who lived off the coast of China at the end of the 16th century. His body length was about 56 meters and his weight reached 30 tons. Such gigantism is considered an anomaly that is extremely rare among Hydra. These creatures have an amazing biology that distinguishes them from many other races of the underwater world. 3 heads are their most notable feature. Each head has its own nervous system, which is intertwined with others into a single whole, which helps to control the overall body. At the same time, each of the heads is a unique personality, with its own character traits and opinions, and in order for the management of the unit to be effective, there is a hierarchy among the heads in which there is an unspoken leader. This role is assumed by the most rational and intelligent of all 3. As a rule, it is located in the center, but this is not essential, and sometimes you can find a Hydra in which the right or left head plays the role of leader. It depends on the individual characteristics of a particular creature. Sometimes there may be competition between the heads for the right to control the body, and therefore the leader head may change several times. Despite the fact that the Hydra has 3 heads, its overall structure does not differ from that of other reptiles. It has 1 stomach, 1 pair of lungs, 1 intestinal tract, and so on. A much more interesting feature of Hydra is its incredible regeneration. Her body is capable of healing almost any wound in a short time. From minor scratches to severed limbs, body parts, or organs. But, of course, the most famous ability of the Hydra is its ability to grow 2 new heads instead of a severed one, which no other vertebrate animal has either on land or in the sea. But despite this unique ability, it has its limitations. Firstly, the rate of regeneration directly depends on the severity of the wound. A scratch heals in 5 minutes, broken bones in 10 minutes, severed body parts in half an hour, damaged organs in an hour and a half, and completely severed organs and heads in 1 day. At the same time, if all the heads are cut off at the same time or the most severe wounds are inflicted on the most important parts of the body, such as the heart or spine, then regeneration will not be possible. Besides, if you cut off oxygen to all 3 heads, the creature will simply suffocate. Fortunately, the Hydra cannot breathe underwater and they need to get air to the surface once a day. There is also one feature related to the regrowth of new heads. If a Hydra loses 1 head and grows 2 new ones the next day, then these new heads will have the same level of intelligence as a newborn Hydra. They won't be able to effectively control their bodies, solve complex tasks, or even speak. These will essentially be 2 children who will have to learn everything all over again and gain new life experience, which can interfere with the functioning of the whole being. Therefore, the Hydra try not to lose their heads. But Hydra is a dangerous opponent, with excellent eyesight and hearing, razor-sharp teeth, which contain poison comparable in strength to the venom of the black mamba. In addition, her blood, meat, and even her droppings are very toxic. Hydra is also one of the few races capable of mimicry. All these qualities, multiplied by its speed, strong reaction and regeneration, make the Hydra one of the most dangerous creatures in the 7 seas. Hydra are carnivorous and feed on any animals they can catch. They are social creatures that live in groups of 30 individuals. Due to their dependence on oxygen, they create special settlements inside rocky coasts, resembling huge anthills. Hydra spend most of their time in them, leaving them only when hunting or searching for resources. The Hydra society is quite highly developed both technically and socially. They know how to make household items from polymetal, and also, most surprisingly, their society is democratic. The head of the city of Hydra holds the title of prefect and is elective. Elections are held every 3 years, and the number of terms is limited to 3. Any adult Hydra can run for the post of prefect. All the Hydra of the city who have also reached the age of majority participate in the elections, but it is worth clarifying that different heads of the same Hydra may have their own opinions, so the vote of each head is counted as a separate vote. The elections are held by open vote in the main hall. The candidates take turns speaking from the podium in the center of the hall, giving their names and the election program, after which the high priest pronounces the names of all the candidates, and the listeners either crane their necks if they agree, or lower their heads if they disagree. The candidate with the most votes is awarded the ceremonial baton and is declared prefect. This is really surprising, given the fact that electoral democracy is not a common form of government in the underwater world. Among the sea races, more authoritarian regimes are typical, for example an absolute monarchy, like the Krakens and the Mermaids, or the Council of 10 Monks like the Umabozu, whose members are elected for life, or the power belongs to the strongest tribal leader, like the Leviathans. So Hydra is unique in this matter too. However, the democratic system of Hydra also has its own peculiarities, since heads who have grown up in the place of a severed head do not have the right to vote, since they are formally children by their level of development and cannot vote until they reach the officially allowed age to participate in elections. In general, losing one's head is considered incredibly shameful in the society of these creatures, as it proves weakness and inadequacy. Therefore, a Hydra with more than 3 heads is less likely to be chosen as a prefect or to find a mate. Puberty begins at 16, and you can get married at 20. Hydra chooses love for life. During the wedding, the bride and groom dance an elaborate ceremonial dance, followed by a large feast attended by all the friends and relatives of the newlyweds. Each female lays 1 egg, which is stored in the driest and safest place in the city of Hydra, called a manger. The eggs of other females are also stored in these mangers. Raising offspring is a social process that involves all the Hydra in the community. The cubs are born 10 months after the egg is laid. Immediately after birth, they are given names, and it is worth noting that each head has its own name, which collectively gives the name to the entire Hydra. Therefore, if you want to contact Hydra, you need to specify its full name, and if you are referring to a specific head, then specify the name of the head you have a question about. The average lifespan of Hydra is 80 years. After death, the Hydra is cremated and buried in a special crypt, which will be kept by relatives. Hydra are very common creatures. Their hidden cities can be found inside rocky coasts on all continents except Antarctica. Their species has come a long way, which began in the Mediterranean Sea, in their homeland. Historical research shows that Hydra used to live in the rivers and lakes of southern Europe, but due to the growing competition with humans, they eventually moved to the sea. However, here Hydra encountered other, more dangerous creatures than humans: sea snakes, Capricorns, Charybdis and mermaids. And at the top of the Mediterranean food chain were the Leviathans, who controlled all the other races of the region. Hydra did not seek confrontation with such a dangerous opponent. Therefore, they agreed to submit to the Leviathans in exchange for non-interference in their internal affairs. Thus, Hydra became a vassal of the Leviathans. They retained their internal autonomy in exchange for a monthly tribute payment of 50% of the share of their catch. Of course, Hydra did not like this situation, and from time to time there were rebellions against the Leviathans in various cities of Hydra, which, however, ended in failure. The largest Hydra rebellion occurred during the Peloponnesian War between humans. This went on for 5 years, and Hydra almost managed to win, but the Leviathans proved too much for them, and the First Great Rebellion, as Hydra called it, failed. However, the Leviathans drew conclusions from this rebellion and decided to give Hydra a break. They reduced the tribute to 25%, and also allowed them to steal loot from other races of the Mediterranean, which no one else was allowed to do. This suggestion satisfied the Hydra, and they no longer tried to rebel against their overlords. But it didn't last long, because less than 30 years later, during the campaign of Alexander the Great, the Krakens appeared in the Mediterranean Sea. Almost immediately, a long and bloody war began between them and the Leviathans, in which Hydra remained neutral. But soon the Krakens promised them full independence if they would support them in the war against the Leviathans. Hydra saw this as an opportunity and, together with the other races of the Mediterranean, launched the Second Great Rebellion, which was crowned with success, and the Leviathans agreed to a truce. However, during the peace talks between them and the Krakens, the other races that helped the latter win, including Hydra, were not allowed to negotiate. Worse, according to the Gibraltar Peace Treaty, the Leviathans themselves submitted to the Krakens and gave them the right to rule over their former vassals. In fact, it was a betrayal, because instead of granting Hydra the promised independence, Krakens simply took the place of the previous owners. Therefore, almost immediately after the Second Great Rebellion, the Third Great Rebellion against the Krakens began, which lasted about a year. Such a rapid suppression of the rebellion is explained by the split between Hydra and their allies, caused by the latter's dissatisfaction with the fact that the Leviathans had previously allowed Hydra to take their prey. But the Hydra themselves believed that the reason for their defeat was that the mermaids, who were particularly hard hit by the Hydra raids, recognized the Kraken's power and helped them put down the rebellion. They knew the location of all the Hydra cities and reported them to the Krakens, who set up a complete blockade of each city, which caused the Hydra to surrender to the mercy of the victors. But, to their surprise, the Krakens did not make their lives much worse. On the contrary, they retained their autonomy and cancelled the tribute collection. In return, the Hydra had to recognize the nominal authority of the giant Krakens, abandon attacks on other races, and no longer come into contact with humans. Hydra did not object to this arrangement. This went on for several hundred years, until a split occurred among Hydra between supporters of maintaining the current status and supporters of complete independence from the Krakens. The leader of the independence supporters was a very charismatic prefect of one of Hydra's cities named Funk Resh Yan. A dispute between the two factions eventually led to the outbreak of the civil war in Hydra. As a result of the 5-year war, the supporters of Hydra independence won, and Funk Resh Yang received the title of Supreme Prefect, a unique title, the de facto leader of all Hydra cities. He proclaimed the complete independence of Hydra from the Krakens. Thus began the Fourth Great Rebellion, which was admittedly the most successful of all. As a result, Krakens agreed to recognize Hydra's full independence. However, the reason for this was primarily because 2 more rebellions took place simultaneously with the Hydra rebellion, namely the Leviathans and the Sea Serpents. And the Krakens had no free forces to stop the Third Rebellion. Therefore, they agreed to make temporary concessions to Hydra. The key word is temporary, as their independence lasted for a year and a half. And as soon as the Krakens successfully dealt with the Leviathans and the Sea Serpents, they immediately withdrew their recognition of independence and declared war on Hydra. The Hydra fought bravely, but it couldn't match the strength of the giant Krakens. During the final battle off the coast of Malta, Funk Resh Jan was killed and Hydra was defeated. However, in the year and a half of the existence of an independent race, several hundred Hydra managed to leave the Mediterranean Sea. All of them went to the Atlantic Ocean, and from it to other free seas and oceans, creating new cities in new lands that had not been explored before, taking longer from the attention of the Krakens. And over the course of several centuries, they managed to create an extensive network of cities around the world. However, the Krakens also did not stand still and continued to spread across all seas and oceans, and eventually, they managed to find all the secret cities of the Hydra and put them in a dependent position. Krakens severely restricted Hydra's rights and actively interfered in their elections, forbidding them to nominate candidates they didn't like. This went on for many centuries, until a civil war broke out between the Krakens, in which Hydra sided with the anti-Atlantic coalition, providing significant assistance in overthrowing the self-proclaimed Queen of the Seven Seas. For this, at the Caribbean Conference, Hydra restored the autonomy they had before the Fourth Great Rebellion. 100 years later, during the War of the Trident, Hydra once again sided with the Krakens, declaring war on the mermaids. The Hydra remembered how they had once helped the Krakens against them, and therefore the hatred for the mermaids in their society was even higher than for the Leviathans, who, by the way, did not reveal the secret of the Hydra cities to the Krakens. As a result, when the Trident War ended, the Queen of the Seven Seas, Cydia, thanked Hydra for their contribution to the victory and officially granted them independence. Finally, the dream of many generations of Hydra of freedom has been realized. Hydra are known throughout the ocean for their unique culture, and their handmade products are considered real works of art. Hydra, although they are predators, never kill for nothing and fight only in self-defense. Their relationships with other races are very diverse. They have managed to establish friendly relations with the likes of the Krakens and Leviathans, their former enslavers, and they refuse to even be in the same room with the likes of the mermaids. Others, such as sea snakes and ibex, have not yet been fully identified. Hydra has a very mixed opinion about humans. Some believe that it was the fault of people that they had to leave their native rivers and go to the cruel sea world. Other Hydra believe that if they were in the place of humans, they would behave exactly the same way. But both agree that you can't trust humans. What can we say about this race anyway? Hydra are truly unique creatures. And if we talk about their uniqueness, it means not only their abilities, but also the ability to adapt to difficult conditions, while maintaining their individuality. The world they lived in was very cruel to them, and Hydra had to repeatedly fail and humiliate herself in front of stronger creatures. But Hydra never gave up and did not forget about their dream, for which they were ready to fight. And when there was a chance, Hydra struck quickly and sharply. And although the enemy often turned out to be stronger, 2 new ones appeared in place of the severed Hydra head, which were ready for battle again. And in the end, their struggle and unquenchable desire for freedom led to success.